B&B 2020. Are you ready?
Welcome to Alpha Live and round number 3 of the Rich Energy British Minibike Championships. After 2 new circuits at Ella Park and Lydd, we move to round number 3 and a familiar setting, Whilton Mill in Northamptonshire. I'm Chris Sora and I'm going to be joined by Jake Sampson for the afternoon's action.
Hi Chris, it's great to be back in British Minibikes once again. We're really excited for what today brings. Whilton Mill is a very tough and technical circuit. There's a lot of camber changes, elevation changes, parts of the circuit where grip is going to be at a premium, especially after rain yesterday. The riders are going to have a real challenge today.
Well, it's certainly a very different challenge after the fast 2 opening rounds of the series. Join us for the afternoon's action. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 3 of the Rich Energy British Minibikes Championship. And we are here at a very busy Whilton Mill circuit for this third round, very popular track with the riders. As you can see from this superb drone footage, qualifying is drawing to a close. We've got an afternoon of race action right here on Alpha Live. My name is Chris Sora, and looking forward to taking you through this third round of the championship. Joined in the commentary booth this afternoon by Jake Sampson. And Jake, you've been out and about this morning, very much an expert on the Whilton Mill circuit, and tell us your thoughts.
Well, I've done very nearly as much laps on foot as a lot of these riders have done around the circuit over the last 7 or 8 years. So yes, this is one of the toughest challenges on the Rich Energy British Minibikes calendar. They have so many different types of corner around this particular circuit, and obviously there was heavy rain yesterday through the course of their practice sessions, and the track has changed a lot since those sessions went out. This is one of those circuits that bites back if you push it a little bit too hard too soon. There are some big bumps on various parts of the course, particularly in the middle section of the course. And obviously, as the circuit has dried since yesterday, it's only just now at about coming up to 12:15 local time. It's starting slowly to get some heat into the track temperature, but the air temperature is only about 12 to 13 degrees, so it's only going to get to about a height of about 21, 22 degrees Celsius track temperature, so it's not going to warm up very quickly. That means there'll be some really greasy patches, particularly in the heavy braking zones into Christmas and probably into the toe of the boot as well.
Well, that's a very good point, actually, because looking at the local temperatures today, last time out at Lydd, it was incredibly hot, incredibly warm, and we were talking to some of the riders, very much a case of good tyre choice as well being important because of the hot temperatures. A lot cooler this afternoon, and like we say, it's a good weather forecast this afternoon. It is fairly cold, but a very low chance of rain, negligible chance of any rain this afternoon. Track is looking good and already starting to develop some lines. We have a few minutes now whilst the riders get ready for the first race of the day. Just a shout out as well, if you're watching this afternoon here, to have a look on the YouTube channel. You can give us a shout out and cheer your riders on. We've had a few shout outs from Tobias Mayfall, Luca Hopkins, number 41, best of luck, and Billy Wiz, 85. Shout out to Michael Garwood as well. So if you're watching on the YouTube channel, feel free to drop a comment, and come on Eddie, says Rachel Tarry as well. Drop a comment and support your riders. Thanks, of course, to those who would have liked to come along this afternoon. As per 2020, there's no spectators here at the event, just purely people involved with the event and with the paddock as well. So thanks a lot for staying away and instead enjoying this superb coverage on Alpha Live. There's a moment's quiet now. It's just a case now of the hard-working marshals, I believe, coming in to have their lunch break, and they'll be back out on track all afternoon. Hopefully, we won't need much use of the marshals or the medics. And just looking at this track, of course, Whilton Mill, the first 2 rounds, Ella Park and Lydd, were both very fast, very flowing tracks, especially Lydd. It's arguably billed as the fastest karting track in the UK, so when the minibikes go there as well, there was a lot of speed out there. It's a very fast-flowing circuit. As we can see here at Whilton Mill, this has got a bit of everything. Oblivion here, the first corner complex up to Christmas on the top left of your corner. The uphill braking zone, Ashby, pretty much dead centre on the track. There's Christmas as well. And this track, compared to the first two in the calendar, it really has got a bit of everything. And what we're saying, Jake, as well, is that this track, it's fast bits, slow bits, there's all sorts of corners here, aren't there?
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many different types of dynamic braking zone, and this is the difficulty. You've got riders trying to get a little bit more aggression out of the bike as the track dries out, and over the course of the day, it will get tougher because you're trying to push that bike a little bit more. The qualifying times today have not been truly representative of how quick all the riders are, because certain riders will push a little bit earlier than others based on experience, based on their comfort on the bike, trying to find where the tires are really starting to get heat into them. So the qualifying times are a little bit staggered between the riders. I was just looking at some of the times this morning, particularly from the Junior SM90 and Mini GP90 race coming up, the first one. There's some big gaps between the riders. Now, normally the times between them wouldn't be quite so spaced out. They'd be a lot closer, but different riders will get a different sense of just how much grip the circuit is getting. And you were talking in particular about, Oblivion into Crook. It's a really tricky circuit, particularly those first two turns to get right, because it's quite bumpy on the way to the braking zone. So you've got to nail it absolutely right. And when there's surface moisture, it really does make it quite slippery. It's a real grease patch once you hit that first bit of the tarmac. And then coming down Manuel's Bank and Fine Lady, you actually climb up quite a steep crest. It doesn't really show you on the drone footage here just how big a climb that is up to Christmas Corner. And then into that right-hander at the hairpin, you've really got to nail it on the throttle back out, because it's a heavy braking zone. You kneel into the apex, and you've got to squeeze that throttle at exactly the right moment. But do it too quickly and too early in the apex, the back of the bike will kick you out and spit you off. So it's very easy to get a high side back on the throttle again. And we've seen many times before at Christmas, a lot of riders, they get on the power just a little fraction of a second too early, and it really does bolt you off the bike quicker than you can think about it. You've then got that left kink, which is another one. The bike can very quickly wash away out from underneath you on the front end, because you're putting a lot of power into the bike on that part of the course. You're leaning into the left, but you've got to keep the power open. You can't really afford to deviate from the throttle at that point, because your rider behind you is going to make mincemeat of you on your way into the next braking zone. So you've got to be very aggressive on that left-hander. And as the races speed up, you're going to see a few more riders brave that overtaking move to the inside line. But you can see in the middle of the course here, particularly into Ashby, the tight right, just towards the top of your screen, then down that straight into the pair of left-handers, Parker into Chapman. Those are very bumpy parts of the course. Riders have got to keep their wits about them, certainly in race one. By race two, they'll be able to open up the taps a little bit more, get those elbows out and be a little bit more aggressive. But it is going to be tricky in the early stages.
Well, thanks for that, Jake, and certainly good insight with the Whilton Mills circuit. We're going to have a look at this in a little bit more detail.
Well, the circuit here is a very difficult one because there are so many technical challenges around the Whilton Mill track. You've got a lot of different types of corner, you've got elevation and camber changes, and because it was very wet yesterday, the rain is definitely going to cause its own problems because it will rub and wash away a lot of the surface rubber that have come off the tyres in yesterday's practice sessions. So particularly as you head on the way through these first two corners, through Oblivion and into Crook, the bike is going to really start tank slapping away, particularly in the Ovale 110s and probably in the Mini GP classes as well. Riders are going to really struggle off the line because that surface rubber that's there on the starting grid, usually in these conditions, a lot of that will have been washed away. So now that basically the riders have got to learn the circuit again in these slightly colder conditions. There's not a massive headwind either. Now that would normally catch riders out in these difficult circumstances, but they're actually doing quite a decent job through these practice and qualifying sessions of learning the track again, so to speak. As you can see, we're obviously adapting to new conditions here as well with the COVID-19 protocols, so it's a very exciting challenge for the riders.
So that's just a brief preview of the Whilton Mill circuit. Just a few shout-outs, actually. Matt Moto83, thanks for your word about the coverage. And again, tyre choice, very important. Maybe run an R on the front. I think that may well be a possibility. And shout-outs to Michael Hart and Dave Carr. Thanks for all your comments. So looking at the Whilton Mill circuit, riders will be assembling in the waiting zone in a few moments' time for the first race. At the moment, we're just pausing to allow the hard-working marshals and track officials just to run back to the clubhouse and grab a nice warm cup of tea, I would say, in these sort of conditions, and perhaps a plate of chips or something to get it back out on the track a little bit later on. And one thing you were saying here, of course, the riders are here all weekend. This is just the afternoon. This is the culmination, you would say, of the weekend's racing. There's been a lot of track time. Riders have had a lot of sessions out on the track, but it really has been a mixed bag of weather conditions. Today looks quite nice, as you can see from the footage. The sun has started to come out. It was a bit dull and miserable this morning, but really is brightening up. It's not particularly warm by August standards, but all over the weekend we had a real mixture of everything. There's been rain and different track temperatures, and as you alluded to in the video there, of course, the rain has washed a lot of those greasy parts away. So it really has been a changeable weekend, really. And the riders maybe, it would be interesting to see what the riders think about this, but I would speculate perhaps that the riders maybe haven't got quite as dialed in as you'd normally expect.
It's a good point, because, yeah, yesterday they're obviously doing all of their laps of the circuit in wet and tricky conditions, so they've got a rough idea, but all of their setup adjustments that they've been doing when they're back at home, tweaking this and fiddling with that, is essentially dialed in for when the conditions are at their peak. And unfortunately, it's only now really that they're getting their opportunity to really experience it, and the circuit's going to get better as the day goes on. But they've had limited testing, obviously, partly because of the way that the track is scheduled due to COVID-19, but also just because of the general to and fro of the riders' schedules. So they haven't had a massive amount of dry running here of late, and that is going to compromise their setup. So a lot of riders are kind of learning on the job. Interesting point from Matt Moto 83, who's talking about tyre choice. Maybe running an R on the front, he notices. I have a feeling that a few of the riders are going to go down that route, and I have been speaking to a few of them. We spoke to Simon James Dean a little earlier this morning. He's said that one of the key factors for today is going to be tyre pressures. If you get it just a couple of PSIs in the right direction, that could be the difference between a second a lap compared to some of the other riders out there. And that's going to be interesting, because a few riders will roll the dice and throw a bit of a gamble in there. And if you've got that right, you'll know within about the first 2 or 3 laps. And if you get 1 or 2 riders disappearing out into the distance after that point, you know they've got the PSI spot on.
You would say that as well, because the bikes, it's relatively stock series, not that many modifications, so the bikes are relatively equal. So like these finer points of setup, I think, could be very important. Just a quick note to good luck to Chloe Jones, says Connor Weston, and go Dean Quimsey, ram them. That's motocross style, that is. It would say ram them.
I don't think there's going to be much opportunity for them to do that, to be perfectly honest, because the thing is with this circuit, it can get very, very tight and very, very tricky early on, but we do tend to see, particularly over the last few seasons, there does appear sometimes to be a few calamities around this circuit. Riders do try to get that gap on the inside line, and there are some good overtaking spots here, particularly into Christmas, probably into Ashby as well. And then just the corner that's coming up on the screen now, that left-hander into the boot, is actually quite a pinnacle overtaking point. The last corner, I would be very surprised if any rider is going to brave an overtaking move there in the first race of the day. Maybe by the second they will want to have a go at it. But that runoff area, yes, it is tarmacked rather than grass, but it's so bumpy, it's so abrasive, you don't want to get out there and have a move unless you are absolutely 100% dead certain it's going to work.
So we're getting ourselves ready for the first race down here in pit lane. The riders obviously going into unknown territory as they head out onto the circuit for this one. The clouds have started to sweep over the circuit now a little bit, so that's going to cool down the track a little bit as well. But the riders are getting themselves ready for the Off-Brook champion there, getting herself ready. Obviously one of the riders up at the front end in the JSM 90 class. There was a big gap though in qualifying between the riders. The fastest time was Arnie Carr in the number 1 bike. He managed to get under 60 seconds. He was the only rider who was able to do so. A lot of the qualifying times are not truly representative of the whole pace that we're going to see from these races, particularly in each of the categories, where the riders are still learning just how fast the bikes are going to be. Alongside me, we have the 83 bike just getting himself ready to go. We also have Reeves Racing, number 18 in the back there as well, going to go very well in this one, we believe, Pierce Reeves. But the riders are getting themselves ready for the action. Let's see if we can grab a quick word. How are things ready for the weekend? You ready to go?
Yeah.
Excellent. So what's the focus for this first race? How do we think the circuit's going to be out there?
Good.
Yeah, nice and simple. We like it. He's obviously very, very focused on the task ahead, so we need to make sure he can get on with it. Obviously, these first few laps are going to be quite interesting for the riders, because obviously with the circuit now effectively bone dry, but it's not quite at its driest yet. So the circuit is definitely going to improve as the race wears on. But as we can see behind me, all of the riders getting themselves ready for the off. The 217 in the mix here, Hudson Cooper towards the sharp end of the field. He's definitely one to keep an eye on as well. But keep an eye on Jack Newton as well, the 135. He's definitely going to be a sharp one up at the front end of the field. The riders all in together here in a nice box mix, so we'll see some really good overtakes in the early phase of racing. But as the day goes on, obviously a very greasy conditions for the first part of the racing. The marshals I can see now out on the circuit are just about to head back out to their posts. We have to give a massive shout out, I have to say, to the marshals here this weekend. Through all this COVID-19 protocol that we're having to adjust to, it's the guys and girls in the Orange Army. They are the ones who are keeping us racing. Without them, we can't race at all. So we're very much indebted to them. It's going to be really exciting racing here at Whilton Mill. Back to you, Chris. We're going to have a great start.
Thank you, Jake. And I would echo those thoughts about the marshals. You can see them making their way to their points now. As always in motorsport, these sort of events simply couldn't run without the army of marshals and volunteers and helpers to run these meetings. So thanks, of course, to our marshals and everyone playing a part in this meeting. Let's have a look at the grid for the Junior SM90 Mini GP90 race number 1. And topping the qualifying charts this morning was Arnie Carr with a 59.24. Luca Wilkinson in second from Daniel Stevenson. Jack Newton making up the second row. Hudson Cooper in fifth from Thomas Bond. Charlie Cunningham was in 7th from Billy Carter. Charlie Ward, Brooke Champion in 10th position. Owen Tempest, Pierce Reeves sitting in 12th on the grid. Finley Hanna in 13th from Logan Connolly. Leo Soliu, 15th position. Ollie Brooks, Jack Beard and Ava Cushing, not representing a lap time in qualifying, will start in 18th position. A real variety of lap times out there. And as Jake mentioned earlier, there's been changeable conditions this weekend. I would expect some of those times to tumble as the racing gets underway. Final preparations taking place in the waiting zone at the moment. Marshals, I believe, will be on their points in a few moments, and we'll be ready for the afternoon's racing in just a few moments. Just a shout out from Rachel Tarry on the YouTube channel. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good race. That's what it's all about. Of course, we want to see good racing and make sure that everyone gets home safely in one piece. Always something to say there. You would say everyone has a safe and enjoyable afternoon's racing. Just to demonstrate these changeable weather conditions, it really is starting to cloud over once again. It's by late summer standards, it's not particularly warm out there, and it's a bit of a difficult situation in terms of setup and getting the bikes ready for racing. And thanks, of course, to Jake for all the work off the track, interviewing the riders. You've just been out there on the track. It doesn't look particularly warm out there.
It's not, and you know what? The wind's picking up, and that's unusual because we thought it was going to be quite a mild day at the office. Now, this is one of those circuits that's a bit like Assen in Holland. It can change weather conditions in about 4.3 seconds. It's a very difficult circuit to predict in terms of weather. We can get the Met Office telling us all day long, oh, there's not going to be any rain. No, less than 5% chance of rain. It won't change. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And then 7 seconds later, there's drizzle coming down, and the riders are all falling off going, well, you told us it was going to be fine. So it's a very, very unusual circuit for that, but this is going to be a cracking opening race.
It's a strange deal, actually, looking at the weather. I was down here last week for the Whilton Mill Karting Club event on Alpha Live, and all the weather forecasts said, there's 10% chance of rain, if that really, and all through the late afternoon it was on and off, and there was these situations where pit crews and parents were scrambling onto the grid almost to change the tyres because it was changing that quickly.
Yeah, it can get very, very tricky very early in, and that's, I think, one of the trickiest situations the riders are going to have. Fascinated to see how these guys are going to get on with things early doors, because obviously everybody's going to want to be right up at the front end very quickly. Looks as though Charlie Cunningham has actually got a different bike for this one. Now, obviously in British mini bikes, you run with a certain number, but if there's an issue with your bike for whatever reason, you can actually switch bikes at last minute. It's a very open and friendly paddock, and even if there's not time to change numbers over, or if you're using somebody else's bike, that's one of the things I love about British mini bikes. It makes it confusing for you and me, Chris, obviously, but it means that the riders can actually get out there and race, which is a lovely little omen. And there is the number 83, which should, of course, be the 34, Charlie Cunningham. But it's good to see him out there getting his run. Oh, no, sorry, that is Arnie Carr, my apologies, who's on the number 1, although actually he's running as 83. So just to confuse you, but Arnie Carr will be running from the front of the field in the 83. I spoke to him briefly. He didn't have much to say.
I saw that.
But it's fine. He's obviously focused. He knows what he needs to do. He knows his objectives. And it's always, very early doors for these guys getting into the world of television for the first time, really. And they're obviously going to build up their confidence as they go. But watch out for Arnie. His qualifying pace was lightning. The only rider in qualifying this morning to get round the circuit in under 60 seconds. So if he has that same sort of confidence with the bike early doors and he gets a decent start, none of the other riders on this field will see which way he went.
Well, we were speculating actually that the lap times will tumble as the afternoon goes on. A few more riders just taking their positions on the grid, and well said there by Jake as well. Actually, is that the numbers do change on these things. So please bear with us occasionally, because I'm used to this in motocross as well. Sometimes in the club races, sometimes it's like you say, it's a friendly paddock, and if a rider's bike hits trouble, they'll nip out on another bike or share a bike with another rider. So sometimes it's a bit of a job. Luckily, we're not lap scorers. So
no.
Back in the day, especially when you had manual lap scorers as opposed to the transponder systems nowadays, they tend to be working very hard. Here we go then. So looks like riders are ready. Grid is cleared, and round number 3 of the Rich Energy British Minibikes Championship gets underway. The flag drops, and away we go into the first corner. Let's hope for a good start. Nice sweep around the outside. I think it was Luca Wilkinson getting a good jump around the outside. And up Fair Lady towards Christmas for the first time. Looks like a good clean start. Everyone through, but Arnie Carr having a look on the inside. Nice drive up the hill to Christmas going into that first corner. Everyone seems to have gone away well as we go into Christmas for the first time. And as Jake said, this one rider running a bit wide through Christmas there, but looking a little bit treacherous on that first lap going through that section.
It's so greasy out there. The riders have really got to learn the circuit at full speed as they go through it. And you'll see a couple of riders getting it slightly wrong. And you can see already that the field is already spacing out quite dramatically. And that's because riders need to get confident on these bikes at speed when they're racing wheel to wheel with other riders as they go through it. So Carr has obviously got himself into a nice position out front, and he's already starting to open up the taps a little bit. And he's got the confidence already to ride away from Wilkinson. Stevenson, Newton and Bond very close in behind. Carter's in the mix there as well. So a lot of good performances coming up, but Carr has already got himself a decent, look, 2.2 seconds clear from Wilkinson already.
Arnie Carr has got this drilled on the first lap, leading by just over those 2 seconds. Wilkinson currently second from Daniel Stevenson, Jack Newton and Billy Carter rounding out the top 5. And as Jake commented there, the field already starting to spread out quite some distance. A lot of these riders relatively new to the sport with limited experience, so it really is a learning curve for them at the moment. Carr pulling away. Here we look at the second place, number 76, Luca Wilkinson, and Daniel Stevenson not too far behind as they make their way round back towards the boot complex to complete their first full flying lap. We'll get an idea of the race pace as the lap goes on.
Yeah, Stevenson has the advantage here in third position. He's watching Wilkinson, and being sat right in behind, he can actually see where he's putting the fairing of the bike, where he's leaning in. He can actually gain a lot of an advantage here over Wilkinson. Carr, obviously, on the Mini GP 90 bike, well, he's gone. He's already in a different postcode, checked out in front. So it's all about Carr just staying on the bike and staying in control. But Stevenson has a really good chance to get one over on Luca Wilkinson up front here, because Dan Stevenson is now just waiting for his opportunity. He's getting a little bit closer, as you can see, but he can just follow in behind Wilkinson and let him do all the hard work. He can gain an advantage of him as he comes through, as Carr is already starting to lap back markers. But look, as they come into Ashby, Stevenson is all over the back of Wilkinson.
Well, he's not quite braving the move down the inside just yet, but as you said, it's just a case here, I think, of looking at the lines. They are starting to nip past some of the tail ends. I think that may well have been Jack Beard on the number 8 that they've just lapped. Beard looks like he's wearing one of the novice bibs, just to indicate that it's an experienced rider. So just a case of being careful of some of those slow riders who, of course, are out there enjoying their own race. Carr currently making his way around the final corner as we concentrate on this battle for second place. The lap time 59.8 last time round for Carr, the race leader, who's already making his way up to Christmas. Here we see another close battle going through the boot complex, and there's the back marker, the 54 of Thomas Bond, currently in 6th place. Charlie Cunningham, Hudson Cooper, all very close as they go screaming over the line. The number 34 of Cunningham, very close indeed. As you can see here, Jake, is another case sometimes it's not always an advantage to be in front. Some of the riders behind almost using this as a learning experience as we look at Cunningham having a look down the inside into Christmas. Nice little braking move down the inside and keeps it tight on the exit to maintain the position. And the riders, of course, sometimes a case of looking at the lines and just learning almost from the rider in front.
Yeah, this is all about confidence, essentially. You can't push too hard. You've got to essentially ride to your comfort zone. And you can see that Bond is really struggling to get to grips with the changeable conditions of the circuit. He's doing his best, but he just doesn't quite have the confidence on the brake throttle, or brake or the throttle at the moment, because he's slowing it up in the right point on the braking zone, but he's just being a little bit too deliberate with the effort to slow down, essentially. And you've got to get on the throttle at the right moment. He's losing ground just by being a little bit too tentative. He has to have a little bit more strength in his own free will here to try and get away from Cunningham. Cunningham having obviously got through, Cooper is now all over the back of him, and Hudson Cooper looked very confident this morning once he got up to speed with the bike. So I imagine he's going to get on the power here, nice and easy up manuals and fine lady. He might even be well clear before he even gets to the braking zone. Look at that. It's just more authority and confidence on the bike. Really well taken there by Hudson Cooper. And now that he's done that, that's going to spur him on to head off after Cunningham.
Well, here we are going down towards Ashby, and great move there on the exit on the uphill. Really off-camber, tricky braking point into Ashby as one rider hits trouble. That is the 23. A bit further down the field at the moment, Ava Cushing was running in 15th place. I don't think that's going to be the case any longer as we again concentrate on this battle just in the middle of the top 10. And it looks like Charlie Cunningham now coming under a little bit of pressure as we head towards Boot. Really slow technical part of the track, and this double apex series, the two right-handers that finish off. This is, of course, it's almost one corner into two separate corners here, and carrying the speed around those last two corners. Oh, got a back marker there as well. They're going to get close here.
They have, but Cunningham made a slight mistake there, and that's going to unsettle him. He's now playing the defensive card into Crook, but watch for Cooper. He's got strength on the throttle, so he's going to be able to power out of here. He's actually second-guessing him. Look, he's trying to come around the outside. They're trying to make sure that they get this nailed right for the bike in front. I think that's Leo Solio that they're going through. It might actually be Brooks on second glance, but this is a very tricky part of the course to try and nail an overtake on the inside. So Cooper is swarming around behind Cunningham, trying to get the squeeze on the throttle pedal just at the right moment, but they're also getting past the back marker at the right moment. Well, that's gaining confidence in terms of trying to go wheel to wheel with another rider. I think he feels that that's the rider he's actually racing with, rather than trying to get out of the way to be lapped, and that's really going to hold them up. So here's an opportunity now for Cooper, who's going to enter the picture stage left. He's got very close indeed now to Cunningham, so this is a good opportunity for Cooper. Coming out of the final turn, he's going to make the move in the boot and completes it through the final apex, but now Cooper is going to have to try and defend because Cunningham's going to get back alongside. Can he make the move back again? No. Very nicely handled there by Hudson Cooper.
So drag race was there, and this is where Cooper looks quick out, seeming to get a lot of power out of the exit as they make their way up towards Christmas once again. And it looks like Cunningham just hanging on the back wheel there, just keeping an eye on those racing lines as they make their way down towards Ashby. It's still Arnie Carr that leads the way. The gap has gone up to over 10 seconds, so Carr really running away with this one at the moment as the leading group of riders filter their way through the back markers. And well, there we see the 85. I think that may actually be.
Oh, it's Carter. I do apologise.
Yeah,
it's Carter. They caught him. Yes, I assumed that was a back marker, but I do apologise. That was Billy Carter. They managed to catch him because he was quite a few bike lengths ahead of them up until that point. But now it's Billy Whiz himself who's really struggling to now hold on in front of Cunningham. So Cooper's already got past him. Cunningham's now the next one in. But this is a difficult one for Cunningham to get right because now that he's caught up to Carter and tripped over him once trying to overtake, Billy Whiz is making all the right moves to keep him back. Look, he's placing the bike.
Nice.
That's really wise from Carter because he's held the bike right in the middle of the circuit there. There's no way for Cunningham to go left or right, so he's got to try and switch it up a bit. And again, he's just placing his bike on the inside line. This is going to be so hard for Cunningham to sweep around, and he can't. This is so wise in terms of the riding stance from Carter. He's got him licked at the moment. Good
defensive riding there. He really is making Cunningham do all the work at the moment. Slower rider moving to the outside to let the faster riders through as they go down through Ashby Angle Ledge, giving you an idea of what a tricky off-cambered corner that is. Still Carr leading the way. Luca Wilkinson in second position, but over 13 seconds adrift. Here we look at the battle again with the 80.
Oh, no!
Trouble there, but Carter tripping over. Oh, bad luck there until I tripped over a slower rider. And
see, he had the right idea there. He had exactly the right idea to go wide around the outside of the back marker, and he needed to keep his hand planted on the throttle to gain the traction around. So he did the right thing. Unfortunately, the rider on the inside being a little tentative, and he clipped the apex curb, and that's what unsettled the bike and spat him into Carter. Nothing wrong that Carter did there at all. He did exactly what he should have done. But it's just unfortunate. Red flags now. Red flags. That's unfortunate.
Looks like Carter getting a bit of medical attention at the moment, so the race has been red flagged. It was a racing incident there, but just a bit of bad luck. Like I say, an inexperienced rider getting a little bit maybe nervous on the inside, and it's just, that's the thing with experience sometimes, when the rider changes lines like that. Nobody really at fault there, but it was quite a nasty tumble. And Carter currently just getting a bit of medical treatment, so the race has been brought to a close at the moment. Well, actually been declared as a result. So Arnie Carr will be the unofficial race winner. That will be declared very soon. Arnie Carr winning by over 11 seconds from Luca Wilkinson, Daniel Stevenson third, Jack Newton and Hudson Cooper rounding out the top 5. But the race has been drawn to a close. Medics are making their way out onto the circuit because of the incident we saw a few moments ago with Carter colliding with the back marker. As we say, just a bit of bad luck there. The back marker, the bike just seemed to drift out, just seemed to change his line and just wipe the unfortunate Carter out. Wasn't really expecting that, and we hope he's okay. The medics are on the track at the moment, just dealing with Billy Carter, who I think indicated he needed some medical assistance. We didn't catch the back marker that he tripped over there, but it appeared the back marker was okay. And we'll just cut to the replay of the incident in a few moments.
I think essentially what's happened with Billy Carter is he's gone down at an awkward angle. He's just winded, essentially, because he's ended up getting tagged by the inside line, and he's gone down at a very awkward angle. But then the rider that he tangles with, actually the bikes end up tangling with each other, and that's where the real energy of the accident goes. So it's a bit of an awkward one because they kind of fell into each other as it went, because normally in a situation like that the bikes dissipate and they separate away, but the back marker didn't quite catch the curb. What essentially happened is he didn't turn in enough. I think he was so busy focusing on trying to get out of Billy Carter's way that he didn't steer enough into the left-hander. He didn't quite get the cornering right, and that's why he accidentally drifted into him. And this is the difficulty. When you're trying to be lapped by people, it's actually quite a skill to do it correctly, because there's such a big difference in terms of the raw speed of a back marker compared to a front runner. And you're trying your best to get out of the way while also doing it sportingly, whilst also trying to make sure that you're not impeding your own race. It's quite a tough skill, and it's difficult because, you know, you have to try and make sure that you've done it correctly. And as you say, you know, I don't think either rider is particularly at fault there. The inexperienced rider just doing what he could to get out of the way, and it's the slightest error in judgment. That's all it is. Carter certainly doing everything he should have done. It's just unfortunate that it ended up in a red flag. Yeah,
a bit of bad luck there. Carter still getting the medical attention. And we'll cut to have a look at the track in a few moments and get some more views from the riders. So as I'm sure you saw a few moments ago, that incident, Carter really hitting the ground quite hard, the front wheel washing away as he went into the grass, and really he did slam into the ground quite hard. So medics are still on the track. The other rider, we didn't quite get the number of the other rider involved in the incident, but appears to be the other rider got straight up and has made his way back to the pits. Carter is still receiving some medical attention. I can't tell you at the moment of his condition, but we hope it's nothing serious. Medics, of course, at these events throughout the season at the Rich Energy British Minibike Championship, always on standby. We hope that they're not required, but of course in the situation like this, I think they're on the track within seconds of the red flag coming out, straight there to deal with the injured rider. So we have a pause in the action at the moment. Riders have gone back to the paddock. That race has, we believe, been declared as a result. Next race of the day will be coming up very soon, just as soon as we get the all clear from the medics and the clerk of the course. Pit Bike Spare Stock 160 Group B. That will be out a little bit later on, but at the moment our thoughts are with the injured Billy Carter, who was running well at the time, battling with the top 5, currently was in 6th when the red flag came out, but at the moment just receiving some medical attention. So now we go through to the second group of races for the afternoon, and going back to the Junior SM90 Mini GPs. Arnie Carr was the fastest qualifier this morning, only rider to break the 1 minute marker. Luca Wilkinson in second, Daniel Stevenson, Jack Newton in fourth, Hudson Cooper and Thomas Bond running at the top 6 in the morning qualifying. And looking further down the field, Charlie Cunningham was in 7th from Billy Carter, Charlie Ward 9th, Brooke Champion running at the top 10, Owen Tempest and Pierce Reeves taking us down to 12th position, Finley Hanna in 13th from Logan Connolly, Leo Soliu in 15th position, Ollie Brooks, Jack Beard, Ava Cushing, no time in qualifying, so rounding out the field in 18th. I think we did lose a couple of riders earlier on today, but the rest of the field making their way out for Moto number 2. And of course the junior riders out a lot earlier on today, so had a few more of the adult groups earlier on. So of course you get this in the motocross as well. When you've been out early on in the program and you've had quite a long time off the bike, you're coming out onto a very different circuit.
That's very true. I mean, it was cool, it was greasy, it was quite slippery earlier on, but now it is a completely different racetrack, as you say. And I think this time the riders are obviously going to have to be very circumspect in the opening lap, because there's going to be a lot more grip to play with. So which riders will get out of the blocks and be a bit more aggressive early doors, and who will have a little bit too much energy in the bike in that opening lap? They've got to try and rein it in, essentially, particularly for these younger riders. It's always very difficult to know who's going to bolt out of the blocks and go for it, because as you mentioned, you know, the circuit is going to be very, very changeable compared to what we saw earlier this morning. The circuit obviously itself, in terms of the camber, is quite abrasive in nature, but with the surface of the circuit now being a lot drier, a lot more grippy, it'll be tougher for all of the competitors out there to maintain a decent vigil on that opening lap.
So riders now making their way down onto the grid for their second moto of the day, and well, we were told that there may be a slight reduction in the race times, because we did have some lengthy red flags earlier on today, which of course hope those riders are not seriously injured. It did take a while into the race, into the program, you might say, so this may mean that we have a shorter second race. Of course that does mean that the start will be very important indeed. Riders last few making their way onto the grid. You got the high-vis jackets at the back there, that indicates that it's a novice rider. So it's just a warning for some of the more experienced guys, particularly at the front, that these riders are new to the sport. They might not be so experienced when they're being overtaken, so just be careful. Expect possibly a sudden line choice, line change you might say, in the corner. And always good to see the novices out on the track as we wait for, I think they're ready to go. Just waiting for the grid to clear here. We're just being told to clear the grid here as we are ready to get the race underway. Moto number 2 of Junior SM90 in the Mini GP. Flag goes up. Once the flag drops, of course, we are underway. And here we go for race number 2. Good jump on the outside there from Luca Wilkinson, who has got the lead. Arnie Carr in there as well. And Carr looks quick on the outside, though, as they make their way up towards Christmas Corner. Tries to cut down the inside. The 135 of Jack Newton in third. But lovely move down the inside from Carr, but will he make it stick? Yes, he does. He had to be brave into the corner there. He really had to be committed, because Wilkinson was trying to shut the door there, but Carr just kept on going.
He was. I mean, Wilkinson had to make sure he left enough space for Carr, but Carr was almost hesitating as he came into the corner as well. He was like, well, have I got this move on? Have I not? So he just kind of had to make a decision in a split second there, whether he powered on the throttle or whether he reined off onto the brake. But he did the right thing there. He averted the crisis. He managed to get the overtaking move done. And because of Wilkinson's slight hesitation, he's been able to already get a little bit of an advantage there. You can see he's already built up, look, a good sort of 7 to 8 bike lengths over Wilkinson. So Carr running a good race out in front. And second place, well, it's going to be a tough one, because Daniel Stevenson, championship leader before today, is definitely starting to make inroads into Wilkinson now.
Stevenson with a good second half of the lap there. Of course, this race is a little bit shorter than the first moto, so a little less time for Stevenson to get through, but Arnie Carr getting a great jump as Stevenson charges down the inside. He's got to be brave onto the brakes to make that one stick, but no, Wilkinson learning from the first lap and determined to shut that door. We've got the 4th position, Jack Newton, Hudson Cooper, Charlie Cunningham a bit further behind, and a bit further back we've got Ollie Brooks and Ava Cushing going through towards the back of the field. There's the 217 of Hudson Cooper, just trying to pull away now from Jack Newton as we look back at Stevenson.
Well, that's good.
Wilkinson wide entry there, just seemed to get the exit speed there as well.
That's good news for Cooper then, if he's just made the move on Newton. But here comes Stevenson again. But once more, he's got to be so cautious about when he makes his move on Wilkinson. This is exactly a rerun of race 1, isn't it? Because this is exactly how it ended before. Stevenson trying to get the move on Wilkinson, with Cooper and Newton essentially chomping at the bit to try and close up. Cooper looking very strong, though, up in 4th place now, having got the move on Newton, and he sets a personal best lap, which means that he's now on terms again with the likes of Wilkinson and Stevenson. It's not going to be too long before he's chomping at the bit to try and get into 2nd place. But Arnie Carr, what a performance from him so far. Everyone else is still in the 61s and the 62s for the lap. He's just done a 58.82. No one's going to win this race unless their name is Arnie Carr.
Really flying at the front then, Arnie Carr, but at the moment, Stevenson just trying to get some lines on the exit here. The number 11, black leather's easy to identify against Wilkinson as they start to catch up on some of the tail enders. I think that may possibly be Ava Cushing. Leo Solio a little bit further ahead as well. Stevenson trying to have a look down the inside as they go into boot, but not quite close enough. Wilkinson guards the apex on the inside. Stevenson now has got to try and find some exit speed around the final few corners, but Wilkinson looks clear through here as again Arnie Carr breaking the 1 minute barrier. Really on a pace ahead of these 2nd and 3rd place runners. It's all about the battle for 2nd place so far. Hudson Cooper a little bit further back in 4th from Jack Newton as the 76 of Luca Wilkinson up into the top corner. Stevenson looking strong, but at the moment it looks like Wilkinson has got the lines sorted out at the moment. He did look a bit vulnerable going into Christmas Corner earlier on, but he seems to have found a bit of pace. And
let's not forget that 2nd and 3rd, Wilkinson versus Stevenson, this is the victory battle in Junior SM90. Carney up in front in the Mini GP 90s in a different class, so he's obviously able to stretch out the gap with the confidence on the bike. But Wilkinson versus Stevenson, this is essentially not just the race battle, but it's also the title battle between these two. Stevenson with 100 points, Wilkinson with 90 up until this point. So Wilkinson beating Stevenson is actually quite critical in terms of the title fight.
Have to be careful there with Ollie Brooks on the 19. As, Ollie Brooks lets the 3rd place man through Stevenson. There was a moment there because Brooks came into the corner and I don't think realised that Wilkinson was approaching there.
Well, it's difficult when they catch you unawares and you've got a little bit more speed underneath you than you feel that you have. It's always a very critical situation. Wilkinson sets the new fastest lap he's done, which is a 1:01.81, still a good 3 seconds off the pace of Arnie Carr. But the critical nature of this is that he's able to stretch out a gap of Stevenson to 1 second. That's what getting through the traffic the way that he has done has been able to give him a little bit of momentum. And obviously Stevenson being 10 points ahead of him in the 20 points ahead of him, because Wilkinson had 80 coming into this weekend, Stevenson had 100. So Wilkinson gaining ground on Stevenson is actually very critical in terms of the nature of the title fight, because it definitely evens things up a little bit and it brings the title fight back to him to a certain degree. He's going to take about 10 points out of his tally going into the next round. So this is a great ride from Wilkinson, and when he needed to do it as well.
Well, he's starting now to eke away from Stevenson in 3rd as they make their round to complete another lap. This, of course, the 2nd group of racing now. Back to the junior riders. Just a shout out for Sophie Coleman about the Pit Bike Stock 140. Just had the first race of that one, actually. Here's a bit of a delayed programme due to the red flag, so be about 8 races time a bit later on this afternoon, although the races have been shortened because of those incidents. Looking further back here, that was Logan Conley, the 25, currently running a lap down in 13th position, battling with Finley Hanna and Leo Soliu. Those riders sweeping down the inside is the 76 of Luca Wilkinson. Wilkinson pulling away all the time now from Stevenson, and a bit of a slightly better racecraft, you might say, from Wilkinson, who's got through the back markers nice and neatly. 12 seconds adrift of Arnie Carr, who has swept away at the front of the field. Just to recap the rest of the top 10, Charlie Cunningham in 6th, just behind Jack Newton, Thomas Bond, Brook Champion, Charlie Ward and Owen Tempest rounding out the top 10. Very close actually for 6th place with Cunningham and Bond. But here we see Wilkinson round to complete another lap and looking very neat in that 2nd place. This is the man of the race so far, though. Arnie Carr has had the race all to himself.
Well, absolutely, and he's been so strong over the course of racing. It's unfortunate that his closest rival in that particular category, Billy Carter, has been unable to continue on after his fall earlier on that brought out the red flags in the first race. But Arnie Carr, he is under no pressure at all up front. He's opened up the gap to Wilkinson to 15 seconds. Stevenson's in some trouble, though. He's fallen down the order behind Wilkinson. He's still there in third, but Newton has caught him right up as they came across the line there. In fact, look, there is Stevenson, under big pressure from Newton and Cooper.
Newton has really found a bit of pace towards the end of the race here, and Stevenson coming under some real pressure. The 2:17 of Hudson Cooper, not too far behind here as we make our way towards boot once again. There's the 1:35 then. Newton. Cooper is just all over the back wheel there.
I wonder if Stevenson's had an off somewhere, you know, because he's lost a massive amount of time to Wilkinson in a very short space of time. He was only a second back from him. Yeah, he's had a slow lap. He's had a slow lap the last time back. His last lap was a 1:06. So he's come off the circuit somewhere, lost about 5 seconds, and now he's got Newton and Cooper all over the back of him. So Stevenson's got to get back on with this.
And of course, this is the trouble when you lose pace with the rider in front. It's just a case of trying to get back into contention. Just a shout out, actually looking at some people asking on the YouTube about how old the riders are in this race. This is a group of riders aged 7 to 10 years. So this is very much the junior class, and these riders with the high-vis vests on, that's the 23 of Ava Cushing, currently in 16th place. The novice riders wearing the high-vis jackets, just to indicate that they are inexperienced riders. So these riders 7 to 10 years old in this group, very much the youngest group as we look again at the number 11. So evidently out of camera shot, Daniel Stevenson has made some sort of a mistake on that previous lap, and this has allowed the 135, really has got the bit between his teeth here now. Newton ran the final corner as we head towards the penultimate lap. At the moment, Arnie Carr, only rider running under the 1 minute marker, leading by 18 seconds from Luca Wilkinson. Daniel Stevenson third, and it looks like Stevenson at the moment has regained a bit of composure going into this penultimate lap.
Yeah, I think he needed to. I think it was essentially just a couple of laps of realising, yes, I've made the mistake, I've made the error. I now need to get back into a position here. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't close up on Wilkinson now. He's gone, but I can maintain third. But I know my way enough around the course now to be quite consolidatory about how I just get myself back into my rhythm and back into my metronomic pace. There's no issue for him here. He's still going to be second in class as long as he maintains in front of Newton and Cooper. So it's essentially the best of a difficult situation that he's been able to work with. But look at this man, Arnie Carr. He's just been, there's only one word for it, flawless.
Has been very, very smooth indeed going through Christmas for the final time, and as you can see, looking quite relaxed at the front, just taking his time to pick his way through the back marks. Although I think we say back marks, I think some of these riders are on the edge of the top 10. Actually, I think that was 34. Charlie Cunningham about to be lapped, who's well into the top 10. Again, you see Arnie Carr just using his head here. He's coming up against Cunningham, who's racing for position and not in a great rush to get through. He just nips his way down the inside. Now with a clear track, and Arnie Carr making his way into boot for the final time. It's been a wonderful afternoon for him. The gap in front, he can take his time going around this final corner. The number 83, Arnie Carr. It's been a brilliant afternoon and will take his second moto win. Punches the air as he goes through. Cunningham looks pleased, a lap just ahead actually, the 46. We saw that battle with Charlie Cunningham and Brooke Champion for 7th place, yes, as Wilkinson should be coming through any moment now in second. There we see Arnie Carr, the race winner. Here's the battle for second. Oh, just lost group momentarily, but it looks like Wilkinson will take second. Stevenson should be in third. Yes, only just Newton and Cooper. So all that action behind there, but Arnie Carr really has been the rider of the weekend in this class.
Yeah, he's just been so serene and strong out in front. He's got the measure of this Mini GP 90 of Arley, and it's absolutely perfect as far as he's concerned. He's really given it 10 tenths all weekend long. He's never really let up. He's been the fastest in qualifying. He's nailed it in both races. He can really open up the emotions now. He doesn't have to worry about anything else now. He can really celebrate, and it's 2 from 2. That takes him one step closer to a title in the Rich Energy British Mini Bikes in 2020, and he can be so proud of himself for today. It's not been easy in the slightest, but he really has made it look like child's play.
Certainly has, and just going to show only 6 riders finishing on the lead lap. There's some quick riders in this group. Of course, they are the youngest riders, only 7 to 10, but they've experienced racecraft with some of the front runners. But even 7th place Charlie Cunningham ended up lapped. Just goes to show how quick things were. So we're going to move on to our pit bikes in a few moments, starting with the pit bike spares stock 160 Group B will be out in just a few moments.